All right, everybody. Let's see. So, the first thing that we're going to be doing today will be reacting to this Destiny stuff. I've got one article and one video I want to watch, and we might, if other people bring in some new stuff, we might get into that. But first off, we're going to be doing that, so we will be recording a video. So, forgive me for the YouTuberiness of this, but we will be doing this. Destiny stuff be crazy. Absolutely. So apparently there is new evidence by Willie Mac Show alleging that Destiny had inappropriate content involving a minor who was apparently 17 at the time, and there were some perhaps naughty pictures circulated that may still be on Destiny's computer. And this article here specifically says that Willie Mac Show has reported that to the police. So we'll be reading that, reacting to it. What do you think about this? I'll be honest, just right off the top of my head, I mean, it's rough to say, right? It's rough to say that this stuff just, exists out there. I will also say perhaps, probably, to give maybe more charity than this person deserves. If you're trying to get laid on the internet and you're famous, eventually something like this is going to happen. So we'll see if this is just a horrible, mistaken case of, he wasn't sure, or if this was a little bit more nefarious. This is a little bit more unforgivable. That being said, I will also say, just right off the bat, this is a guy who is all about law and order, all about the letter of the law when it applies to people that, he doesn't seem to like or that are his, political opponents, people on the other side. And in those cases, the letter of the law, letter of the law, letter of the law is the thing that matters. And now, even if this person is 17, well, letter of the law says that person's a minor, that person's a child. So, yeah, expect the full weight of that law and order to come down on your head. And also expect no one to offer any sympathy, any charity, any generosity, because you have not shown the same thing to other people when they have been in situations in which lawfare was used against them in accordance with the letter of the law, but not exactly respecting the spirit of it. All right. YouTube commentator Willie Mac Show recently uploaded a video titled Reported Destiny to the Police, where he claimed that Twitch political streamer Stephen Destiny Benelli had supposedly, or Benelli, something like that, right? Had supposedly downloaded alleged inappropriate images involving a minor. Rose Destiny is currently entangled in a court case involving an individual named Rose. Supposedly, in 2022, chat logs between the two appeared online, with Rose allegedly being 17-year-old at the time and Destiny being 33 years old. The alleged messages showcased conversations of an explicit nature between the two. And I will also mention that apparently the alleged stuff in there seems to be corroborated by the fact that Rose deleted everything. So, that usually does not bode well if there's nothing to hide, if, this was not the case. Usually you would leave the evidence up. Now, maybe there's some explanation for that otherwise, but it doesn't look good. Let's put it that way. All right. While showcasing screenshots of his conversation with Destiny about the same, Willie Mac Show shared a segment of the chat where Destiny seemingly said that Rose's boyfriend had been recording her, apparently without her consent during Skype calls while she was allegedly underage. Now, doesn't say specifically how underage. Again, from what I can tell, the allegations about Destiny having this stuff about, this conversation, these types of things, that Rose was around 17. So this is before 18th birthday. Again, it's gross even if she was 18. If we're going to be totally honest here, but it's legal. It's still kind of gross, it's still scummy, but it's legal, Reacting to this, Willie Mac Show said, Well, this is insane to me because he's saying Rose's boyfriend recorded while sending me a screenshot of the alleged not good stuff. So I asked to confirm if he just did that. In response, Destiny had allegedly claimed that he did have a copy of all of their messages and everything when the court case was initiated. Reacting to this within the video, Willie Mack Show continued, just to be clear, he's admitting to having alleged not good stuff downloaded on his computer. He literally has the video open as I'm talking to him. Within the YouTube video, Willie Mack Show could also supposedly be seen talking to a police officer about the entire situation and seemingly reporting Destiny in the process as well. Again, yeah, I gotta be honest. This is the kind of stuff where, yeah, you should definitely be involving the police in there. Okay. I have an obligation to preserve relevant evidence. Destiny responds to Willie Mack Show's allegation that the former has explicit images involving an alleged minor. After allegations were made against Destiny of engaging in inappropriate conversations with Rose while she was underage, the streamer responded by claiming that he was told that she had been 19 years old. Furthermore, he claimed that he had logs to back up his claims. Now, I don't know what the legal onus is there. I don't know if, if somebody claims to be 19 and they're actually 17, if you have naughty pictures of them and they were taken when they were, legally underage, but you had some claim to say that, she was above age. I don't know what kind of legal, proof there is necessary to go, yeah, you had it within your right mind that, she was believably above age and therefore this stuff is all okay. It's still kind of gross, but okay. I don't know. Because, just, somebody saying, oh, hey, I'm 19, it doesn't feel like quite enough, especially on the internet, especially with, things being the way that they are. We know people do lie about these things a lot. And certainly, I mean, if I were Destiny and I was just, trolling for random tail on the internet, I would have an unbelievable amount of you must prove this to an insane, ridiculous degree. Okay? And I'm going to make sure I record all of that stuff. All right. With that being said, it's just it's kind of I don't know what the legal recourse is to this. I don't know what the onus of proof is here. I have no idea. All right. And yeah. So someone in chat wants to know if I stopped making ASMR. I didn't stop making it. I just haven't made it recently. It's not to say that I will never make it again. And obviously I kept all my old videos up. But in general, that's not what I'm doing right now because it did seem to kind of stall out for me. Yeah. I might go back to it or I might start a second channel where I port all this stuff over. I'm not really sure right now. Yeah, we're in kind of a weird liminal phase. All right. Now, in conversations with Willie Mack Show, Destiny responded to the former's claims that he had potential not good stuff of Rose, writing, I have an obligation to preserve relevant evidence, etc. So I created backups of all the important relevant conversations with her, Solo, Pixies, Straighter, Raid, Aaron, etc. I don't think I'm allowed to delete it, lol. I don't know if it counts as hiding/destroying evidence. That's an interesting question here. I will also say it's kind of only relevant evidence if you're then reporting it. Yeah, it's not really evidence in this context, I don't think. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong here. I think unless you're, handing it over to the police and therefore, you have it boxed off in some specific area so that, they can have a chain of evidence and, chain of ownership of these types of things, I don't think it counts as evidence. In his video, William Axel once again claimed that this was Destiny admitting to having explicit content involving a minor on his computer. During the pair's conversations, Destiny had attempted to clarify his position by writing this final message. I don't even know 100% if her age is legitimately below 18, greater than 18. He doesn't know if she's 18 or not. When these were taken, I'm pretty sure I still have an obligation to preserve stuff related to my court case. I've talked about this with my lawyer already, specifically with regards to the Rose stuff. If something were to come out of this, I don't know if I'd want to wipe everything and not have something to turn over to authorities. If, hypothetically, her boyfriend or whatever was actually trafficking her or getting her to get other dudes on video for him, and if there was ever some kind of investigation into that, am I hurting any chances of looking into him by deleting all of this stuff? Again, so this seems to have been the case. Like, if this stuff came out, if he's got this, people gave him this information, had to have been a while ago, right? Had to have been, a couple whiles ago. So I think this Rose person is now 18. I'm not sure exactly. Let me see. Does it say when this happened? I think this was, 2022. Okay. So 17 years old at the time, and therefore she would be, 19, 20 at this point in time, depending on when her birthday is. So if that's the case, that means he had 3 years of this stuff just like on his computer, and therefore lying around. I would imagine if he had reported this to the police, this court case would have gone forward. So currently, whatever's happening is in response to the fact that, this is now coming out. So I don't think he can actually claim this as evidence. Again, I'm sure lawyers are involved. Lawyers are involved. It does seem to me not good that this stuff was just on your computer for 3 years and you didn't do anything about it. Even if you had no idea one way or the other, if you suspected, it's kind of like, okay, well, if you had some suspicion that this person was being trafficked, I would probably err on the side of let's let the authorities handle this. And that doesn't seem to be what happened. So it looks bad no matter what. That's for sure. I can't really say anything good about this. I'm trying to give charity here and say, like, okay, like, maybe he didn't know. Maybe he had no idea. But also, the behavior that I'm seeing is not commensurate with someone who's really trying to do, like, the right thing here. It doesn't seem like it. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Definitely crazy, though. Thank you for your time and attention. Good luck in all your endeavors. Farewell for now. All right. Stop recording on that. All right, so we've got one other video that I did want to look at. This stuff from Side Scrollers, which is actually where I had first seen this. So I want to, kind of give credit where credit's due. And let me just resize this a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, I want to see if there's any other information on here.
These Destiny
because I was looking for articles and these types of things. I'm not good at trolling Twitter for these things, and that seems to be where the majority of this, public court case is happening, and therefore they might have more information than me. They probably do.
Allegations. Have you heard about this?
I did hear about the Destiny allegations where he was caught sexting with like a 17-year-old.
Yes. Okay, so let's go there. Let's do that. This is
it's crazy that everybody who has tried lying about me ends up having these kinds of allegations against them. That's nuts, man.
Oh,
pretty crazy.
Have you?
Yeah, and again, I mean, I will say a lot of this just does have to do with Destiny kind of just being a coomer, and it's not good. I mean, this is the one thing. I mean, this is Andrew Wilson's apparent, like, main problem. I've heard him say this. I don't know if it's true, but he has said, like, this is my main problem with Destiny, is that he's a coomer. That I think that's a terrible take, but when stuff like this happens, you can point to it and go, "See, that's why I had a problem with him." And it is also this thing of just like, dude, I think it's just so stupid to be doing this. To be trying to be so like desperate for, you know, getting laid that you're putting yourself in a position where eventually, just law of numbers, you're going to have an allegation like this pop up and it be really pretty credible because it's bad. It's not good. So this is the point where it's like, do I believe this happened? I don't know if it happened. Do I believe this could have happened? Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that the behavior this person was engaging in would make this possible, if not likely, if not inevitable.
And Destiny had some squared off a little bit against each other.
Yeah, so I don't remember how long ago it was, but he basically said it was a clip where he was like, yeah, if my parents got shot at a Trump rally, I wouldn't feel bad. Paraphrasing, because I don't remember exactly how he worded it.
I think this is around when Trump got zipped in the ear, which I don't remember exactly when that was, but so let's say, I mean, almost a year ago at this point. Almost a year ago, probably. Something like maybe 10 months ago, I would say. Something like that.
And while I was watching this clip of him, like, I had my woman moment. I got, like, so upset that he would feel that way towards his parents that I cried a little bit. You know, I was like, that's fucking vile. And so he posted a clip of me talking about like how jokes are okay to make, but he clipped it out of context to make it look like I was being hypocritical for being upset at him saying he wouldn't feel bad if his parents got shot. I was like, that's not a joke. I don't what's the punchline, man? That's not a joke, dude. And it's like, when I've made fun of shootings, I make fun of the shooter, not the shooting victims, which is a weird thing to do.
Right.
Well,
right. This is. I
mean, again, I'm like, look, in Destiny's head, they're not victims. They are collateral in a war that he's on the right side of, and therefore completely acceptable targets if they get whatever. If they're taken out of the equation in any way, shape, or form, that's great because that means they're not voting for the other side.
Well, this is nothing to make fun of these allegations here. It says streamer Destiny has been accused of sexting and sharing pornographic material with a 17-year-old girl. Twitter users, including his own son, are sharing evidence of sexual chat logs between Destiny and the minor. That's pretty fucked up when your kid is throwing you under the bus here.
Not good.
By the way, I'm sure this is the face he's making
Didn't
right
his kid recently come out and be like, yeah, I'm a fascist or something? Like, his kid was just like, yeah, I'm whole ass leaning.
I think I do remember something along those lines, but I don't follow it. I've really kind of completely divorced myself from anything Destiny related. I've just completely excised him from any of my algorithm. I'm just like, anytime I see his face on any video, I'm like, nope, get rid of it, get rid of it. Don't recommend this channel again. Don't show me this video again. Don't show me anything related to this again. I want him completely gone. I don't want anything about it because this person is just completely lost any respect, any kind of like any kind of authority that this person had. I don't like this person could make a good argument. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's coming out of your mouth. It's coming out of your mouth. You're not a good mouthpiece for this anymore. This could be a great message. I could totally agree with it. You could have a fantastic reason and rationale behind it. It could be a great argument for a thing that I totally agree with. I don't care. It's coming out of your mouth. Get rid of it. I don't agree with it anymore. And unfortunately, he put that on himself. That was, that's not me being unreasonable. That's him proving himself to be hypocritically unreasonable. And instead of, being super rational, like autistic, pure reason and rationale, he is just as susceptible to, emotional argumentation as anybody. and it only goes one way. So, you know, it's not great.
Into whatever my dad is not.
Right. Yeah. His
Not shocking.
well, I don't know what his kid's deal is. I don't have a whole lot to speak on that, but you can see kind of what's going on here. You can see this. It has now been 100% confirmed that Rose was 17 at the time.
Allegedly.
The time Destiny was exchanging pornographic material with her.
You said
Anything
it.
sent prior to October 22, placing him in direct violation of numerous states and federal statutes. Now, on these individual tweets, they actually have they show the dates that they were sent to her and her birth date. She was definitely 17 at the time here. And you know, so this is obviously very big if this is the case here.
What you did leave out here is that Rose, after this was posted, because this was posted on Kiwi Farms, after this was posted, she DFE'd everything, which essentially confirmed that it was in fact her.
What does DFE mean?
Delete fucking everything. So it's like when
okay.
when someone gets exposed and they start deleting all of their social media and whatnot, it's like a sign that like, oh, they did get the right person in this case.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. This is
Okay, like get the right person. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Definitely doesn't look good for sure. That's very clear. But it also could just be like, oh no, I mentioned in this stuff, so I'm just gonna, you know, get rid of everything. You know, just completely cordon myself off so that I don't have any kind of ramifications come my way. That's a possibility, but it doesn't look good.
this apparently, like, this is pretty fucked up. This right here, holy shit! It was actually a child Destiny was making his now famous butt plug pickup lines on. Like, I don't even want to say this shit, but
Yeah.
I guess we will because that's what's going on here. I'll tell you what. I'll read this as
I remember seeing that I've been using one the past 2 days. That's been posted like everywhere for ages.
Here, I'll be Destiny here.
Fuck. Have you ever worn a plug before?
Rose responded, "Butt plug? If so, yes,
Hey, yo.
I wear one at least a couple times a week while I'm out."
That's kind of gross, man. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that from.
I don't want to hear that ever. Like,
Yeah.
why do
I don't want to hear it ever, but like it's an extra layer of like that's
Uh-huh.
weird to hear because
Hey.
now you know that they were 17.
Yeah.
Yes, very
Yeah.
weird. Destiny
What 17-year-old is doing that? Like, for real. That's not good, dude. I don't care. Like, what 18-year-old is doing that? For real. Like, I mean, yeah, you're not in a good place if you're doing that. If you're 18 years old and you're doing that, yeah, a couple times a week I'm just going out and doing this kind of stuff. Okay. You clearly need to be in some sort of, you know, social services. You need to seek counseling, seek, you know, a priest, something, because like there's lots of stuff very bad, very wrong going on.
responds,
I've been using one the past 2 days, and oh my god, it's intense.
Oof.
sorry,
Yeah.
it's just disgusting. Like, what a fucking weirdo. Can I just, like,
Yeah.
what a weirdo this guy is. She says, "Do you like it?"
Yeah, it's so intense, damn.
And she's over here just trying to fucking talk about Minecraft over here.
Well,
He's all talking butt plugs and stuff. What a
yeah.
weird dude. Did anything specific happen that made you want to try the plug?
You missed her saying that they should get matching ones. That's
Yeah.
fucking wild, brother.
That's
Just
impressive.
as crazy into the butt plugs. She just mentioned Minecraft once or twice.
Okay. So this
That's it. She's
So
wild.
this is new. This is new stuff for sure that I haven't seen. I understand why this was not in this article. Yeah, I wouldn't have put it in there either.
Gonna get matching.
Kinda just-
butt
yeah.
plugs.
Not good.
If I
This
was
just
dating
turns your stomach.
someone, and it's gonna be a man.
Ugh.
I'm not into women, but if I was dating a guy, and he wanted a butt plug, I'd be like, I don't think this is gonna work, man. I don't think it's gonna work out.
I think you're gay.
Yes. Wow, you gay. That's right.
Wow, you gay.
And he says, oof.
Okay, deal.
Oh my
This
God.
is so gross. Did anything specific happen that made you want to try the plug?
Huh?
I'm not even
Powering up.
Yeah.
Powering up.
Yes.
Destiny said he was just home masturbating, sucking on a guy, and he decided to try it.
Yeah.
But I think the most disgusting
Cool.
thing here, besides the fact that he's doing this with a 17-year-old, is he said the butt plug was Melina's. He took his wife's butt plug and used it on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing makes me really uncomfortable.
Well, you keep
Like,
reading
I
it,
have
dude.
something inside of
There
me
we
that
go.
does not
Okay.
Inside of my significant other.
That's
That
better.
is, like a thermometer, okay? Because I see some cheeky ass people who'd be like, "Well, Kirsha, how are you gonna take your temperature?" That's not what we're talking about. Fucking holy
Yeah.
shit, that's grotesque.
Like,
Not
just
good.
what a freaking weirdo creep. Like, I
Yeah.
think we can all agree, right? This guy, you shouldn't be talking like that really to anybody.
It's yeah.
Online, period.
I know nothing about what his wife is into sexually, and hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah.
But if I was in a relationship with someone and they were like masturbating, thinking of sucking off guys and stealing my butt plugs to wear
Yeah.
for themselves, it's no fucking wonder he got cucked. Because I would have zero respect
Yeah.
left for that person.
Very reasonable. Although also the people that he's attracting have to be already like just such broken individuals. Yeah. Like you're not getting the cream of the crop here. And again, you're just trolling for, an easy lay. Who's the easiest? The people that are most broken and vulnerable. And they're vulnerable because they've been, broken by other people. So yeah, you're gonna get just, horrifying stories nonstop. And I mean, you hope, I don't know. I don't know what you hope for. You hope this guy goes to jail? I'm like, kinda. I mean, I don't think that's gonna end well either. I think he'd be, like a martyr for doing it because, the people on his side can very easily rationalize this and go, no. It's not his fault. It's the law's fault. She's 17. We need to, lower the age of majority from 18 to 16 or something like that. Yeah, it's not good though.
What a mess. What a mess of a life for him.
Not good.
Just a creep. Just a weird creepo dude. Like not
good.
a normal man by any means. Blabs, when you see Destiny, does that look like the ideal man for you?
You gotta be joking. You have to be joking.
No.
That man is like the epiphany of mental illness and coquetry.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
You said it. You said it right there, which is absolutely true.
I
Wow.
don't see it, man.
Oh, so Lumpy just rated on Rumble. Hi, Lumpy.
Let's go, Lumpy. Thank you so much, Lumpy Potato, for that wonderful raid. Scarlock says, so when an underage female sends nudes of herself, is she guilty of distributing illegal material?
In the U.S., at least, yes.
I don't
Yeah,
know the
that's
answer,
true.
but
There was a case with, do you guys remember the TV show Catfish?
Yeah,
I
that's
do,
true.
Yeah.
So there was
This is actually a horrible thing because like a lot of high school kids are like on sexual predator lists because of this, because like they'll sext each other, and then the police get somebody's dad, somebody's mom, whatever, sees it and goes, oh, we need to report this, whatever, and so then they get registered on the lists alongside the real people who've done bad stuff. So like you've got a lot of like 15, 16, 17-year-olds on this list for like just sharing stuff with their high school aged girlfriend, boyfriend. And it's not good. It's not good. So it is illegal. It is. It's not good.
Catfish that was an underage girl catfishing some guy. I can't remember if he was like in the WWE or if he was MMA. He was some sort of like professional fighter kind of guy. And she ended up sending him pictures of herself while she was underage, and he ended up going to jail, and she also had repercussions for sending them.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I don't remember that one, but that was an interesting show, the Catfish show. It was kind of ahead of its game.
I really liked that show. That was some great trash TV back in the day.
That was trash.
They should just make a. I'm sure there's tons of YouTube channels that do that now. You know.
There is. I want to find it.
There is. All right. So let's see. So we got a couple other videos. Let me see. How do I want to go for it? I think I want to go for this one first. Yeah. It's just good to reiterate this.
People are freaking out that the GOP might abolish the Department of Education and replace it with Greenland. I'm not holding my breath. Presidents don't have the authority to abolish federal agencies that look at them funny. Congress is about as effective at passing laws as Great Danes are at passing laws. Actually eliminating the Department of Education would require Congress to sober up long enough to pass a bill, not to mention a great deal of...
There's a lot of good evidence that literally everyone in Congress is like drunk 100% of the time.
Political capital Trump could otherwise spend on creating cool new branches of the military. A more likely scenario is that Trump's Secretary of Ed hires a bunch of professional wrestlers, and the department mostly just irritates teachers' unions and trolls Ivy League universities for the next 4 years. But let's say...
and again, this is like 3 months ago. This is essentially what happened. Is they're just, they're just not doing anything with it. Which is, kind of better than what they were doing before. They're just wasting money.
Actually do abolish the Department of Education. What would that mean? The Department of Education isn't that old. It was created during the Carter administration in 1980. Boba Fett, Red Lobster, and Nickelodeon are all older than the U.S. Department of Education. Ellie Kemper is older than the Department of Education, and she's never responded to my DMs. Do the United States have education prior to Ellie Kemper? I have no way of knowing, because I graduated from high school in 2003, well into the decline of American public education. I mostly learned about dinosaurs and heroin. I also learned these things in public school.
Yeah, good stuff.
Education in the United
Pythagorean
States is
theorem.
not actually run by the Department of Education.
True.
It's administered by states, school districts, and increasingly, YouTube videos involving cats or twerking. The Department of Education doesn't determine curriculum, hire teachers, or monitor the quality of heroin in public schools. Outside of some minimum grants, it doesn't pay teacher salaries either. It doesn't even handle the National School Lunch Program. That's the Department of Agriculture, which I think should be replaced with Ellie Kemper. Call me. So what does it do? Mostly student loans. The Department of Education's budget is about $270 billion per year. Of that, about $160 billion goes to federal student aid. That's about half, I don't know, public schools. I did learn how to turn an apple into a bong. After its main job as a Pez dispenser for Pell Grants and student loans, the Department of Education operates as a kind of civil rights commission for public schools. It ensures that schools aren't doing racist stuff or providing inadequate services for children with disabilities. I'm actually more worried about, the overall decline of American education in general.
Yeah, mathematics and reading scores in unprecedented drop. Yeah. Now, you can easily say, hey, look, a lot of that was COVID, a lot of that was lockdowns, which is true. But also, it's not like they were trending upwards and then there was a sharp decline. It's like, no. They've been going down for quite a while, according to every metric.
Than I am about teachers being racist. I just don't think teachers are particularly racist. But let's say that's a problem. The laws are still on the books. You can still sue a school for bringing back segregation. If your public school, full of card-carrying teachers union members, is just itching to Jim Crow their math class, let me assure you, the laws are still on the books and you can totally sue them in court. I do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
To meet ladies. So is there a Mr. Your Honor? Now, to be fair, a small percentage of the Department of Education's budget actually goes to assisting public schools. About $14 billion is metered out to school districts for special education services, and $18 billion goes to improving school districts, provided they do whatever the feds want. I'm sure there are some great programs the Department of Education handles.
So let's see, 18 billion out of 270 billion. Let me just try to math this. That's 5%. Is that right? 5%? Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, roughly 5% of their budget goes to things that you could actually say, oh yeah, education related. Yeah.
But if we're assessing the efficacy of government, here's a good basic starting point. Would education be better in this country with the Department of Education as is, or if we just dismantled it and sent checks to every public school in the country. There are 50 million students enrolled in U.S. K through 12 public schools.
Not even a
How much
question.
would each student get if we just split up the department's budget? I couldn't work out the math. So I hired far more competent Bangladeshi 12-year-olds to divide the Department of Education's budget by the number of American students. Then I asked them to do my taxes. And finally, in a heartwarming moment, I adopted them. And I am now the proud father of 2 beautiful kids. One ago I adopted out of pity.
Ooh.
My children came up with the following figure. $5,400, I hate you, you're not my real dad, this is why you're alone, per student. So if somehow the Department of Education does wind up on the chopping block, ask yourself, if we just sent a check to every school district in America of $5,000 for each of its students, would education be better or worse than it is now? And to be clear, that's what I would do. That's not what the Trump administration is proposing. They want to abolish the Department of Education and then shoot Rosie O'Donnell, tariffs on narwhals. I don't know. Alternately, we could
rest in
just
peace.
not spend the money because of the massive, crippling debt that will
Yeah,
eventually ruin these children.
might
Well,
not be a
before
bad
everybody
idea.
freaks out, it's worth asking, how vital is the Department of Education to education? Now, if you'll excuse me,
Yeah,
I've got a date
not
with a
enough.
hot judge. By which I mean I've got a hearing for contempt of court.
Yeah, it counts, man. It counts. That's definitely still a date. It still counts. All right, yeah, and again, like I made a video about this back in the day when this was first happening. I just wanted to see if it had aged well, and as far as I can tell, it kind of did. But again, unfortunately, Congress is not going to do anything about it because it's kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say it's like it seems like a no-brainer because again, if you actually look at the facts here, the Department of Education does like almost nothing, and the stuff that it does do is such a small portion of its budget, and it could very easily just be like, yeah, again, like we'll just give that directly to schools in the form of checks for every student that they have, and there you go, we're done. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to administrate this. It's just automatic. We're done. That's so much easier than having an entire department full of people. You have to, pay them to do all kinds of different stuff and then check to make sure that they're actually doing that stuff and doing it well and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, like just get rid of it all. Alrighty, and now this one, I don't think I've seen this one actually. I don't think I've seen this video from, what is it, Reason TV? Yeah. How government created a scientific technological elite. Well, maybe I have.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In President Dwight D. Eisenhower's
Everybody loves that one. They use it so much. And, it's definitely aged well.
famous 1961 speech about the dangers of the military-industrial complex.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
He also warned Americans about the growing power of a scientific technological elite.
The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present.
The federal government had become a major financier of scientific research.
This is fun, because we're going to be playing Deus Ex after this. This just dovetails so nicely. And also, dear God, dude, how good is Deus Ex? How good is that game? It's just, it's disgustingly so good. It's insane.
Research after World
Holy
War
shit,
II,
it's so
and
good.
Eisenhower was worried that the spirit of open inquiry and progress would be
So good,
corrupted
it's
by the
insane.
priorities of the federal bureaucracy.
Public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
It is time to stand up for science.
Today, the people protesting the Trump administration's cuts to federal funding for scientific research are part of that scientific and technological elite.
The Trump administration's drastic cuts are already having an alarming impact on medical research in our country.
These cuts would be devastating, stopping vital biomedical research.
Labs already reportedly shutting down across the country.
Isn't a lot of research done by like private companies and stuff? Because I mean, pharmaceutical companies, they're so big, they're so huge, they're so rich, they're so powerful. Aren't they doing most of the medical research? Right?
And there's a good chance that slashing federal spending will liberate science from the corrupting forces that Eisenhower warned us about.
Yep. Thank
If
you.
Look at particularly 19th century Britain, when science was absolutely in the private sector, we have some of the best science going.
Terence Keeley
Oh,
is
yeah.
a professor of clinical biochemistry at the University of Buckingham.
Charles Darwin was a rich person. Even men who had no money had access to rich men's money one way or another. So in those days of laissez-faire, the rich paid for science. If you look at GDP per capita, the story is dramatic. The French and German governments funded science very generously, but their GDPs per capita absolutely didn't even approximate to Britain's, let alone overtake, which is what American GDP per capita did.
Right.
Thomas Edison's industrial lab produced huge breakthroughs in telecommunications and electrification. Alexander Graham Bell's lab produced modern telephony and sound recording, all without government
And
money.
who's the Italian guy? Marconi? Yeah.
The Wright brothers, who ran a bicycle shop before revolutionizing aviation, launched the first successful manned airplane flight in December 1903, beating out more experienced competitors like Samuel Langley, Secretary of the Smithsonian, who had received a grant from the War Department for his research.
So the Industrial Revolution was British, and the Second Industrial Revolution was American, and both were in the absence of the government funding of science.
The idea that the government needs to accelerate scientific progress was based on America's experience during World War II, when federally funded research led to breakthroughs in rocketry, medicine, and radar. The Manhattan Project, which cost $27 billion in today's dollars, employed more than 500,000 people and culminated in the creation of the atom bomb and the discovery of nuclear fission.
Let there be no mistake. We shall completely destroy Japan's power to make war.
It sure seems like we did.
Lobbyists took the Manhattan Project and said, look what government funding of science can do, and they then twisted it.
In November 1944, President Roosevelt
Which is
sent
true.
a letter to Vannevar Bush, who was the director of the U.S. Office of Science and Development. Roosevelt instructed Bush to come up with a plan to make federal funding of
FDR, what a piece of crap. I don't like him.
scientific research permanent.
During the last 40 years, Dr. Bush has been one of the nation's leaders in the great onrush of science and engineering.
Science has been remaking our lives in every way. It's going to do so in the future. And it's inevitable, therefore, that scientists and engineers have far more to do with government.
It has been basic United States policy that government should foster the opening of new frontiers, wrote Bush. Bush's treatise eventually led to the creation of the National Science Foundation in 1950. But it was a stunning accomplishment from America's greatest rival that would supercharge the nationalization of science.
Oh, right.
Today, a new moon is in the sky, a 23-inch metal sphere placed in orbit by a Russian rocket.
Sputnik, the world's first man-made satellite, seemed to confirm fears that the Soviets, with their centrally planned economy, might eclipse the U.S. in scientific innovation and weapons technology.
That turned out to be completely wrong.
Yep, it
But
was.
in 1957,
Yeah, as evidenced by the fact that, like, you know, they were never going, like, this is the whole thing. I like what is it? It's the HBO special From the Earth to the Moon. It's basically very clearly states. Now, I mean, obviously this is a work of fiction, but I think it's correct and certainly lines up with history. The idea for going to the moon was not popular. They didn't really want to do it, but it was essentially like, all right, we needed to beat the Russians at something. What can we do? Well, we can make, like, why don't we do something like building a space station, putting something like that up? And everybody was basically saying, no. It has to be something that involves innovation. It has to be something that involves invention. Otherwise, if it's just industrial capacity, the Soviet Union can outstrip us because they can just, they're going to work everybody to death. They'll have, they've got, huge amounts of slave labor. They've got all these countries that they've taken over and they're very happy to just let them die. They don't say this, but this is the case. We'll lose. We'll lose if it's, a space station, if it's, some sort of like, lunar model, blah, 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 whatever. It needs to be innovation. That's what we can do well. That's what we can do better than them because we have, freedom, we have the competition, we have these types of things available to us and we're better at them. And therefore, that's why we need to put a man on the moon as opposed to some other projects.
Americans were terrified.
Russia's getting into space really bothers me because it's making the Cold War between Russia and the United States, more intense.
we should find out what they're doing that we're not doing. And we should do something about it very quickly.
After Sputnik, the Eisenhower administration tripled the budget of the National Science Foundation, which would provide federal grants to universities and labs. If federal funding of science is counterproductive, then what explains the success of Sputnik and the Manhattan Project? Well, of course, government funding has led to major breakthroughs, both during and after World War II, such as the synthesis and mass production of penicillin during the war, cancer immunotherapy.
But it had already been discovered.
Artificial heart valves, and the gene editing technology CRISPR. But you have to compare that to what might have otherwise happened. Good economics takes into account not only the seen, but the unseen. So what are the unseen innovations the world misses out on when governments set the research agenda?
If the government funds science, it actually takes the best scientists out of industry and puts them in the universities, and then industry, in fact, suffers.
After Sputnik,
which is fair. And this is true. This was a lot of the legitimate, I think, criticism of the entire NASA project. Like, it cost a ton of money. We tied up an enormous amount of, time, money, resources, people, industrial capital, intelligence capital into this one project that realistically doesn't actually serve any purpose other than, it's very cool. And obviously looking back on it, it's amazing. It's incredible, but does not really actually impact the lives of people. It's just that, because the challenge was so great, there are definitely going to be offshoots. There's going to be other things that come out of it. But the idea that, if we had kept like the space race up, which is what is the For All Mankind, that show, the idea that the space race was just continuing the entire time and the government was just funding it. And therefore, like, in the 80s or something like that, technology is way more advanced. It's just, unlikely that would actually be the case.
Money pushed basic science out of the private sector. 2/3 of all research and development was paid for by the federal government by 1964.
Ooh,
if you were a tool maker in Ohio in 1964 and you wanted to invest in R&D to make better tools because you wanted to beat your competitors in Utah, you wrote a grant to the Department of Commerce. Can you believe it? That's how nationalized American science was in 1964.
The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present.
Eisenhower's warning is absolutely correct. You try saying in an American university governments shouldn't fund science, you will not be well received. There's an enormous amount of self-censorship.
In academic science, the process takes precedence over outcomes.
Very true. Very true. There's a ton of academic censorship, self-censorship.
Researchers are incentivized to publish peer-reviewed papers that garner citations, which helps them to secure prestigious academic posts and more federal grants.
What happens on the peer review under the government when there's a homogenization and only one set of ideas is allowed to emerge? There is enormous self-censorship.
The pressure to accrue citations has created a positivity bias, where an increasing number of papers supporting a hypothesis are published, while negative findings are often buried. One biotech company could only replicate 6 out of 53 landmark cancer studies. Swedish researchers found that up to 70%
what was it?
53 landmark cancer studies.
6 out of 53, so 11%. So something very possibly 90%. 90% of cancer research, landmark research papers are wrong.
Swedish researchers found that up to 70% of positive findings in certain brain imaging studies could be false. A team of researchers re-examined 100 psychology studies and successfully replicated only 39.
That's hilarious that's better. Like the cancer stuff is 11%, psychology stuff, which is way easier to fake by the by. 39%. Hilarious.
that there's
Way
still
better.
more work to do to verify whether we know what we think we know. In an influential 2005 paper, Stanford professor John Ioannidis flatly concluded most public research findings are false.
The trouble is that because of peer review and because of the corporate nature and because there was only one funder, the government, you end up with a monolithic view, and so you crush what's so important in science, which is different ideas competing in a marketplace of ideas.
For decades, the federal government advised Americans to avoid saturated fat based on the work of a researcher named Ansel Keys, who received substantial funding from the U.S. Public Health Service and the NIH.
For 30 years, we had this nutrition pyramid telling us what was healthy and what wasn't healthy. Actually, it was a very good pyramid as long as you inverted it and did the exact opposite, but that wasn't what they told us. But Ansel Keys said, I have the solution. It's all to do with fat. And so he initially started off by getting a group of scientists together under the auspices and money of the American Heart Foundation. And very quickly, you couldn't get grants unless you subscribed to Ansel Keys' theory of fat.
And this is still the case, man. This is still, so many people still think this is the case. People like in medicine think this as just like the normal basic stuff. And it's literally like, this is 70 years outdated.
Captured this small little redoubt, he then moved to the NSF, and then suddenly the whole world believed only one thing.
More recently, Stanford's Jay Bhattacharya was attacked by the public health establishment for questioning the COVID lockdowns. He told Reason there's an inherent conflict between the NIH director setting public health policy and doling out grant money.
I just don't think the NIH director should play a big role in health policy, because if you have an NIH director that does, they control the minds of so many scientists.
Bhattacharya, who Trump appointed head of the NIH, now faces a proposed 40% spending cut at the agency. That could accelerate medical innovation in the long run.
If these changes can be managed in such a way that these scientists can move from the NIH into the private sector without massive disruptions to all the work and research they're doing, that will be to the benefit of America.
It would be similar to what happened in the early 1970s, when Congress slashed DARPA's budget in half, laying the groundwork for the rise of the computer age.
And what happens to all those scientists?
Which is funny.
Well, they all go out.
Because we all hear about DARPA and we're like, oh my God, they did so much stuff. It was so incredible and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, all right, yeah, but they had this stuff and they didn't do anything with it. It was only after it got out of the hands of, government people that other people were able to look at it and go, oh, wait, hey, actually, this is a big deal. This is actually really cool. We want to, try to do some new fun stuff with this. And it was only after it got out of the hands of these people that apparently are such incredible visionary geniuses that they created the internet and they created, all this other stuff, that it actually is useful. It makes me think that they're not that smart.
To Silicon Valley, because they've all been made redundant. They're all physical scientists. And they invent the modern world. So halving DARPA's budget transformed physical science in Silicon Valley. It was the best thing that could have happened to America.
Roosevelt drew the wrong conclusions about science from the war. Vision, boldness, and drive can be found amongst the dreamers and tinkerers working in private laboratories, who are often too iconoclastic to be good candidates for government research grants, but whose ideas simply work.
It's technology that keeps science honest. So if you're a scientist and you make an observation which can be tested, if you do this, the rocket will go that way. If you do this, the rocket will go this way, and it can be tested by technology, then as a scientist, you have to be honest, because you'll soon be found out. But if your money comes from the government and it comes by peer review from committees, and the committees subscribe to a false paradigm, no one is going to test your paradigm.
Vannevar Bush and FDR were wrong. The private sector can push forward the scientific frontier.
And clearly has.
Federal funding of R&D in America has flatlined for decades, while business investment keeps going up.
There's a direct correlation between them.
Let's check this. All right, U.S. total R&D, business, federal government, higher education, non-federal
amount
government,
of money a company spends on pure science and its subsequent correlation.
Flatline can push forward.
Let me just pop back here. I just want to make sure he's reading this
Federal
chart
funding
correctly.
of R&D in America has
Doink. Okay. U.S. total. All right, so the blue is U.S. total R&D. Okay. This is federal and business. So the red thing is business. Federal government is this. The line on the bottom. So that's basically nothing. But business has invested it. So it's the vast majority now.
Flatline for decades,
Gotcha.
while business investment keeps going up.
There's a direct correlation between the amount of money a company spends on pure science and its subsequent rate of profit. But there is no such correlation when the government is doing pure science in an ivory tower, because the companies don't know how to access that ivory tower pure science and don't even know it exists half the time.
Abandoning NASA's Cold War space race monopoly, the government has outsourced rocket design to competing private companies. The world can barely keep pace with the breakthroughs announced by Silicon Valley's privately funded AI labs.
Science in America today is actually more private than it was in 1940. People just haven't seen it. No one wants to talk about it because there are no votes in privatizing science. But actually science and research has been increasingly privatized for the last 40 years. I would like to see that process continued.
Let's heed Eisenhower's warning.
Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
The question is not whether or not America should continue conducting scientific research. It's about
Deus Ex,
who
man.
is in control.
It is the task of statesmanship to mold, to balance, and to integrate these and other forces, new and old, within the principles of our democratic system, ever aiming toward the supreme goals of our free society.
So good. Literally, like, this is so like apropos for us playing Deus Ex, which I want to get into, but I'm also just like, no. Come on. Let it go for a minute. I do want to watch this one video, and then if we watch these 3 videos, I think we'll basically be able to get it. So it's like we've got 2 hours to play Deus Ex. And then tomorrow, I think I might just play... Well, I mean, this is the other side of this, where it's like, I do want to basically... I keep wanting to make videos about stuff. Yeah.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million practitioners of common sense and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet.
That's me.
No, it's not like we haven't tried to sound the alarm or light the beacon since way back in the Force's female days and way back in the Captain Marvel days, the first shot fired in the MCU.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude.
Despite the appearance of success, we tried to warn you this day would come. I mean, wasn't it Tinseltown and their ilk in the Access Legacy media that was constantly telling the fans who they despised that change was
inevitable?
It's what?
Inevitable! Things are inevitably going to change. God damn it, open your ears.
Difference here is there is natural change and forced change, and
Oh, that's the Harry Potter thing. I thought it was an Illuminati thing, but no, it's the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows sign, which is a cool symbol, by the by.
There's no 2 better examples in Hollywood than Disney Star Wars and Disney Marvel, the 2 IPs Disney bought to make it less of a girl's brand. Again, we warned taking male brands that were enjoyed by everyone and turning them into female brands that were enjoyed by no one wasn't a good strategy. And it turns out my good friend Chris Gore, who got a lot of clapback for this quote, was right. Disney turning Star Wars and Marvel from a boy brand into a girl brand will prove to be the costliest decision in movie history.
I would love to see when that was made.
And as usual, the corporate legacy access media finally catches on to what the fans that they loathe so much have been saying years too late. From Variety, Disney's Boy Trouble, Studio seeks original
This is the new
IP
stuff.
to...
So this is the new stuff everybody's talking about. And yeah, I mean, it's very clear. So isn't Disney Plus getting like just canned and Hulu's absorbing it? If it's that bad and that costly, that's hilarious to me.
win back Gen Z men amid Marvel Lucasfilm struggles. Disney's struggle. Now, I'm not going to say they don't need to win back Gen Z because they do, but I would argue just changing this headline to win back men.
Men,
Because,
yeah.
and I've said this before,
Clearly.
I'll say it again. It's not that you just drove away.
Although we would say the Gen Z men, like the Zoomer generation, the divide between men and women is like even more stark. Like it's the divide is even larger and wider. You know, the Gen Z men are like the most conservative ever, and Gen Z women are like the most liberal ever.
Men, including Gen Z men, you made them the enemy.
Here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time.
When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Ooh.
So the toxic fans
Yeah.
right again, and no, we're not all running a victory lap. We're reading a death certificate. If you've been hanging around this channel for any amount of time, this won't be anything new to you. Disney Marvel and Disney Star Wars are indeed dead, and they have been for a long time. What you are witnessing are zombie franchises, and they are.
I do wonder if that means that eventually, like, they'll get like sold to somebody else. Unfortunately, it'll probably be like way more expensive. The only people who will be able to buy it will be, you know, another company that's going to do the exact same thing, and it's going to suck because, like, what we would like to see, to be perfectly honest, and this would be horrible for the brand for a while, but ideally, you basically say, all right, Disney runs Marvel and Star Wars into the ground even more. You know, they make them even worse. They suck even more, and then Elon Musk or whoever, you know, pick a, you know, nerdy fan guy who's got billions of dollars, buys them both, and it's just like, okay, now they're in the hands of fans, and we're gonna do what we want with them. That would be really cool, and I would love to see that. I don't know if it's gonna happen. I feel like it's probably not gonna happen, but it'd be cool.
Just two examples of our beloved IPs and stories being constantly dug up and desecrated by the creatively bankrupt Frankensteins.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
And now that those bones have turned to dust, it looks like Disney's moving on to destroy and desecrate something else. Looking at you, gaming and anime. Admittedly, gaming has been doing its own fair share of destruction and desecration, but Hollywood wants in on that action. Not. But let's hear what Variety has to say. And oh, they're being clever. Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty aren't the only ones looking for a prince. Son of a bitch. Shit, if that's what you want to call it.
Good at it.
Walt Disney Studios has been pressing Hollywood creatives, if that's what you want to call them, in recent months, multiple sources tell Variety, for movies that will bring young men back to the brand in a meaningful way. Young men, in quotes, and something, quite frankly, Hollywood's always been into, is defined here by sources as ages 13 to 28, aka Gen Z. I think it's prudent to point out, within that Gen Z age range, at least they have witnessed some good Marvel, but they have never witnessed any good, consistent Disney Star Wars.
No, that's true.
What about Andor? Well, I would say out of the 3 trilogy films they have produced.
Let me hear. Okay, because like I know Critical Drinker loves Andor. I watched the first season and hated it. It sucked. It was so boring and so annoying. It was completely not worth my time. I didn't like it at all. Hearing his absurdly glowing praise of the second season does kind of sort of make me want to try to check it out. But to be honest, I think it's going to be the same thing where it's just like, you know, your mileage may vary. He liked it for whatever reason. I didn't. Because the things that he mentioned about the first season that he liked, I was like, no, it's not there. It's not there for me.
The 2 standalone films they have produced, along with the 7 live-action series, and I'm not going to count the animated series. I'm going to be kind here. You might have possibly gotten 1 to 3 projects, and believe me, this is arguable, that might have been watchable out of 12. And a quick reminder, Disney has owned Lucasfilm for almost 13 years. And as far as Marvel is concerned, and again, at least they used to be good. But since Endgame, with the roughly 27 projects, not counting animated series, they've shouted out only 3 of the movies were good, and the best being something they don't own, Spider-Man No Way Home. On the streaming side, the only
No Way Home versus Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I don't know. I mean, in one sense, you'd say, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is it's the third. Well, no, so is No Way Home. Yeah, I don't know. I think probably Guardians is a little bit better, but it's better in a different way. I mean, if you're looking for like movie, Guardians is better. If you're looking for superhero movies, Spider-Man is definitely better. I can see that.
Only thing watchable were a couple of holiday specials, and the best thing
That's
was
true.
an animated series, and they fired the showrunner. Yet none of these projects are great, and the rest is absolute crap. So what is that, 6 out of 27? And this has been going on for half a decade.
God, it
We
looks
all
so
know
bad.
the reason why this is happening, and we all know the reason why the corporate legacy media will never bring it up. Sacrificing our beloved stories created by more talented people on the altar of the message. They are vandalized, violated.
I don't know how much of it is the message and how much of it is just simply they're not that good. And therefore, the only way to make themselves seem or appear to be good at all is to denigrate the people that are more talented. You know, like, oh, no. You didn't actually like this stuff. That stuff was actually bad. Yeah, no. This is the good stuff. We know this is the good stuff because we're saying that older stuff was bad. Uh-huh.
Subverted and perverted beyond all recognition, and then even worse, turned into a lifestyle brand. Inevitably, apathy sets in because the stories have no meaning, or God forbid, real heroism in your superhero story. And Disney continues its doom loop of self-referential gobbledygook, where the only thing Marvel and Star Wars seems to be about anymore is themselves. Oh, and making the fans the enemy. Speaking of that, let's see what the famously impartial Variety has to say, who's written their fair share of articles attacking the fans. At least they state the obvious. First, every film studio is looking for a better way to convert young audiences.
Yikes.
I'm not comfortable with this conversation. Into habitual moviegoers. Numerous studies show that Gen Z men, in particular, are a lonely, gaming-obsessed group who were hampered in their formative years by COVID-19 lockdowns. Dude, in this article where they're talking about Hollywood trying to get men back to Hollywood, they damn near called you incels. Why not just come out and say it? Hey, how do we get the incels back? Sure, we've emasculated you, denigrated you, and attacked you at every turn, and literally made you the enemy, and constantly called you incels, which is just another word for nerd, which is something you kind of need to watch things like Marvel and Star Wars. And they've constantly called us toxic fans, but it turns out they need our money. The question is, who cares? And then Variety piles on and says, not the easiest segment to grasp. And I would have to ask Hollywood, physically or metaphorically. You know, it is probably difficult for the likes of Variety and Hollywood to grasp that segment because they have driven out any shred of masculinity from their industries and running a never-ending campaign against the patriarchy. In other words, men for years. And yes, male loneliness is a very serious issue, something the entertainment industry going across commercials or social media has shown zero interest in, zero empathy or sympathy towards to this very.
I mean, this is nice, but I didn't care for the boys. The show's better than the comics, but that's not saying much.
Moment. Can't imagine why men want nothing to do with you. Anywho, back to Variety and the issue at hand. But what surprises producers, writers, and other partners in the larger industry is that Disney has been calling for original concepts to lure the demo back to the movies. Let's take a look at some of these original concepts.
Yeah, do you need original? I mean, I think it would be cool. I don't think they're going to make original concepts, though. When they say original concepts, do they mean just like characters we haven't, grabbed yet? Oh, okay, we're going to do the Authority from DC comic books and Wildstorm and that kind of stuff. We'll do, like Swamp Thing, maybe? Or we'll do something like, yeah, dude, like, come on.
Disney has coming up. Tron Ares. It's original, I guess, because it's a Tron movie without Tron, although I am looking forward to it. Predator Badlands.
Those look kinda cool.
Zootopia 2.
Oof.
Avatar 3. Fire
Oof.
and Ash. Ready or Not 2. The Devil Wears Prada.
Ready or Not? I don't even know the first one.
The 2, The Mandalorian and Grogu, Toy Story 5, Moana, a live-action remake of an animated film, Avengers 5, Ice Age 6, another Star Wars movie, Frozen 3, Avengers 6, Avatar 4. In other words, I'll believe that statement from Disney when I start believing Bob Iger when he says for the 17th time that he's going to prioritize quality over quality, which will be never. As Variety points out, this is the same Disney whose multi-billion-dollar content engines, Marvel and Lucasfilm, have sated men of all ages. I'm sorry, you misspelled a word there. Have hated men of all ages over almost 2 decades since the company acquired them. The sources say Disney has been seeking new IP and pitches such as splashy global adventures and treasure hunts, as well as seasonal fare-like films for the Halloween corridor. The calls come as the Star Wars machine struggles to produce any film project, and the superhero genre sheds audience by the minute. In other words, our priorities are moving on because because we buggered Star Wars and Marvel into oblivion. And apparently this big brain decision to bring back all those toxic fans and incels comes right from the top. That's right, the weatherman, Bob Iger, and he probably made that decision between one of his multiple showers per day. Two insiders say the mandate...
What is that supposed to mean? Multiple showers per day?
To recruit young males goes as high as the C-suite. I gotta give Disney some credit here. At least they're bringing in a dude to help bring back the dudes. David Greenbaum, the former Searchlight Pictures co-head. He runs Disney's live-action business, something Variety says is a label that has been sorely lacking in guy-leaning fare. What the hell is guy-leaning fare? Like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Oh, you mean the one that the last time you made an announcement, Margot Robbie was gonna be the lead? Also, to say nothing of the lackluster attempt to reboot and hand off Indiana Jones, to Phoebe Waller-Bridge. A Disney source says that movies for Gen Z men are part of an overall strategy across all labels.
I think they have to say the Gen Z stuff to like obfuscate the fact that it is just men in general are just like, no, we're not doing it. Absolutely not. It's not happening. And obviously, like, women were never a part of they were never there in the first place. They were never going to see these movies in large numbers in the first place. So they've just actually lost their audience.
Do you ever think for 1 second, Disney, that maybe looking at all the stuff you paid billions of dollars for as labels is part of the problem? You can have all the strategies about labels you want. There's one big problem with this scenario. You're still Disney. Case in point, you know the dude I just mentioned put in charge of bringing back the dudes? Well, his big solution was to hire a chick. Greenbaum recently hired Daria Karcik, the savvy former Paramount Pictures co-chief, to assist in the effort. You mean the savvy woman from the company that's $15 billion in debt?
I was going to say, I think Paramount's not doing well.
I think a push for this demographic is simply Greenbaum, who hired a chick to help him bring the dudes back, trying to put his stamp on live action. Yet numerous power players who spoke with Variety see something ominous in the tea leaves. Yes, admitting those toxic fans were right in bringing back that male audience that you spent years degrading might be ominous to Hollywood. And yes,
probably not
they
going to
bring
work.
up what Disney does best. No, not doing anything original or anything innovative, buying their way into an existing franchise like Fortnite. That'll get them kids. Yeah, too bad they don't own the movie rights. And yes, they bring up that Disney was the box office king last year, mainly due to a third Deadpool movie with Fox characters and a couple of animated sequels. And they have $1 billion film this year with a live-action remake of an animated movie, Lilo and Stitch, whose profits were essentially erased by the flops Elio
that hurts.
and Thunderbolts. And they already started the year in the hole because of Snow White. And they have two potential $1 billion films towards the end of the year, both sequels, Zootopia 2 and Avatar, Fire in the Ass.
Preparation H does feel good on the whole.
Still no word on that originality Bob's talking about, who said in the last quarterly meeting that he won't favor existing IP over original material.
Sure, Jan.
His big solution for all of these problems is to put out great movies. Now we know why the weatherman makes the big bucks. One top film executive at a Disney rival, I wonder if his name rhymes with Pavlov, says every studio should be looking for originals as sequels and reboots continue to exhaust the culture, even if they're packing in moviegoers in the short term. In the short term, I want you to remember that. But first, how exhausting are sequels and prequels? Forgive me if you've heard this before in my Alien Earth review, but it bears repeating, and yes, it is exhausting because there isn't just prequels and sequels. Oh no.
Oh, this is an interesting thing.
There's direct sequels, spin-offs, midquels.
A story set within the time frame of an existing work, specifically between two already published stories or during a time skip within a single work.
Interquels, intraquels, standalone sequels, paraquels, sidequels, legacy sequels, prequels, and spiritual sequels. Now let's circle back to that statement in the short term, because that has essentially been the strategy of Lucasfilm and Marvel Studios. Meaning there is no concern for the longevity or legacy of your brand, the one you've paid billions of dollars for. And while the Variety article did bring up one of the people who are responsible,
I will say, like, they paid billions of dollars for it. I feel like maybe not Star Wars, but I feel like they've made their money back, right? They probably made their money. Have they made their money back on Marvel? Probably, yeah. Star Wars, I Doubt it.
Responsible for these disasters, Kevin Feige. It didn't even mention Kathleen Kennedy. And you may be asking yourself, dear viewer, rightly so, how in the hell are these people still employed? And the answer is
Hollywood.
Kevin Feige is essentially post-Tom Brady Bill Belichick minus the 25-year-old girlfriend. Sure, he won some championships, but what the hell has he done for anybody lately? We've gone over his failures since Endgame, but just this year, according to Rob Liefeld, he's 0-3. I would argue, add in Daredevil and Ironheart, making him 0-5. And you can sense that people smell blood in the water. Speaking of Rob Liefeld, who's been roasting Kevin since he wasn't invited to a party. Then there's Bo DeMeo, the former showrunner of X-Men 97, going scorched earth on a...
This is unfortunate. It's a good movie, but it confirms what I've been saying. Marvel Studios has a major leadership problem, an even bigger brand issue, and it's just generally out of sync with its core audience. Also hints at what I know to be true. In Hollywood, talent before and behind the camera doesn't want to deal with their work toxicity. This is what happens when you abuse the artists you need to make films connect with both fans and audiences. Writers don't want to be cheated or script fees, and actors don't like filming movies when the script hasn't even been finished yet. And those who risk doing it end up at a studio that does not set them up for success. Rehashing past ideas with RDJ and the Russos to avoid risk is doing the exact opposite of what will save them. I kind of tend to agree with that. I will also say, in general, I mean, a lot of this is just straight up, you do not have the same talent that you did. You've pushed them out. They're not there anymore.
Daily basis. I guess he didn't sign an NDA. And now the director of the biggest MCU flop, Nia DaCosta, is throwing Feige under the bus. Of the Marvels, Nia DaCosta said, one of the issues I had with Candyman and the Marvels was the lack of a really solid script, which is strange because she co-wrote both of them. DaCosta has also previously said that the...
But I mean, she's terrible. Like, I mean, this is an obvious thing where it's like, yeah, no, it's like you get a terrible script because you're not a writer. You're just you're cast for the role of director, writer, creative helmer. You're not a talent that's been nurtured in that specific vein, and you're not a fan of these properties. You're not, you're not fervent. You're not rabid to tell a story about this stuff that's been brewing in your head for years since you were a child. Yeah, it's just it's not there, and that's. That's the general sort of entertainment industry at this point. Is those people are not getting the opportunity to tell those stories. So they're just, those stories aren't being told. Like good stories like that aren't being told. And the people that were talented / are talented because they, came up in an era where they could do that. It's like the Warren Ellises, the Grant Morrisons. Those people have just been pushed out by people that are more politically savvy.
Marvels wasn't the movie she shot. # released a DaCosta cut. But that's okay because there's going to be the Cameo Fest Avengers Doomsday, which I predict will have the tightest script ever written. That's not true. It's not even finished yet. But according to Alan Cumming, who says he doesn't know what's happening in Avengers Doomsday. I did the entire film in isolation. Lots of green screen, face replacement. They even gave characters fake names. I don't know who I was acting with half the time.
Nice.
And the piling on continues with 2 articles from the Hollywood Reporter today. The summer box office is quickly turning south. Early hopes that grosses could top $4 billion this season have fizzled.
I still say I liked the Thunderbolts.
As insiders bemoan a lack of tentpoles. And look at that picture. It has 3 Disney characters, including 2 from Marvel. Again, from the Hollywood Reporter, the second weekend is the new opening weekend. A handful of films this year have been pronounced box office winners based on their opening performances, only to fall off a cliff in their sophomore outing and reveal their true fate. And guess who's featured here? The Fantastic Four. I was told calling this film a flop was premature, and that is the 3rd time that has happened with the Marvel movie this year. Then there's Kathleen Kennedy, who, sorry for going on with the sports analogies here, and sorry, Brits, we're talking about real football, American football. She's the equivalent of an offensive coordinator who worked under a really talented coach and got hired away, and then you found out that all of her success was due to the really talented coach. approach. Name Steven Spielberg, and the most prolific and formerly most valuable cinematic IP of all time hasn't made a movie since 2019. And don't get me started on another tangentially Disney product, Doctor Who, where a Doctor Who producer said the casting of Ncuti Gatwa and the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker was not some bold step in the culture wars. Bullshit. She says it's simply as it should be. It's normal. And
Totally.
now the show is simply
totally normal.
where it should be. It's canceled. And what do all three of those franchises have in common? Besides having something to do with Disney, they had a slavish adherence to the message, and they all committed Mary suicide, destroying the classic for a now that never was. All to bring in a modern audience that never existed, obliterating Doctor.
And I mean, that is the thing where it's like you're trying to recruit women into this thing that they don't want to go see. It's the same thing for like when you masculinize like these female characters, like the most recent example being like the Blood Elves from World of Warcraft. The Blood Elves were apparently basically made specifically for the exact purpose of drawing in a female audience to play as the Horde. Because all the Horde were like ugly, like, skeletons and like, just kind of like ugly characters. So they wanted something that was aesthetically pleasing so that more women played Horde. So they made the Blood Elves. So you could have pretty characters. You could have, pretty female characters, pretty male characters. And that's who, the women wanted to play as. And also it's like, ooh, this is, titillating for the male audience. This is great. So when you then push forward these characters that are masculinized female characters, you lose the men because they don't want to look at that because it's ugly, and then women don't want to look at it because it's ugly, because it's like, oh, where are my cute characters, where are my pretty characters, where are my like hot sexy femme fatale characters? Oh, they're not there anymore. And I was like, yeah, you should want to be like this is like a really strong female character. And I was like, well, the other ones were strong too. Like Princess Leia was strong, but also feminine. Name the characters. Samus Aran. Again, go through the full list of old characters that were female. You had plenty of strong female characters that were strong and feminine. But we don't have that anymore. Now they have to be masculine because the masculine is the only way to, portray strength. Unless it's a man doing it, in which case it's toxic.
Doctor Who, Star Wars, and Marvel's longevity and legacy. The thing the fans cared much more about than the owners of these franchises. Marvel Comics has 80 years of continuity. Doctor Who has been around for over 60 years. Star Wars for almost 50 years. And the fact that they're all still around, be it as zombie franchises, is a testament to the brands. And Disney has either been directly responsible or partially responsible in doing the impossible, ending the timeless story. And the only thing fans are responsible for is deciding your legacy for you, Disney, by walking away. And even if Disney could fix this, or better yet, would fix this, I don't think they even know how. This is called being too big to succeed. In other words, being too scared to change. What's the evidence of this? Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy still being employed. Two studio heads who thought it was a good idea to emasculate the male hero, denigrate the male hero, and then go as far as to denigrate the male fans. Turns out it has consequences because it pissed off men and women, and now you need them back. And I think it's best summed up with this post on X Twitter, which I couldn't have said better myself. If you're struggling to get boys to watch your stuff when you own Marvel, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones, you don't belong in the audience business. You also don't belong in show business. What an astounding failure Disney's woke era has been.
Burgerotic.com.
We will have to. I mean, like it's just very clearly the case. Very obviously, very clearly the case. It's just not a good move. All right, so we got two more political videos I want to watch. Which are just kind of interesting. I like this free media. I do like these guys. I like Amber Duke more than I like this guy. But this is kind of like just this weird incestuous relationship between The Hill and Reason TV. But, you're kind of getting independent voices. This guy seems to be a little bit more left-wing, a little bit more left-leaning. Robbie Suave is like much more clearly Republican, and I actually like the debates between him and Amber Duke a little bit more, just purely because of the fact that the Libertarian Party is capable of having a dialogue with the, what we call it, the new right, the MAGA movement, that kind of thing, the Trump Republican right now. The left is like, they're out of the conversation. They're doing their own thing. They've got their own stuff going on, and they're not interested in having a conversation with other people. So I prefer those dialogues.
And he is threatening to force them to remove. Trump has turned his ire on Washington, D.C.'s museums, and he is threatening to force them to remove exhibits that cast America in a negative light, i.e. he wants to censor exhibits that accurately depict the country's complicated moral history.
Trump writes on Truth Social, the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian's out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, with a capital S, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. Not going to allow this to happen, and I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities, where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke because woke is broke. We've got the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including in our museums.
Over on MSNBC,
I think that's kind of reasonable. You know, I'm not saying like, you know, censor this bad stuff, but at the very least say, yeah, can you show the other side of this? Can you show the side that, you know, was the dominant force in history, which is like, yeah, you know what? You can be proud of your own culture and say that even if there were bad things about it, ultimately it was a positive, you know? And it's not like, it's not old. And again, you go to any other culture in the world, they've done and or are doing horrible things, but they're very happy to have some national pride.
They're calling this a war on history. Take a look.
Plain and simple. It's a war on history. Not the history of any one group, but our collective history, as we've learned. Hadar Harris, managing director of the Freedom of Expression.
It's a war on one interpretation of certain segments of history.
Group at PEN America summed it up this way, quote, the administration's efforts to rewrite history are a betrayal of our democratic traditions and a deeply concerning effort to strip truth from the institutions that tell our national story, from the Smithsonian to our national parks. Understanding our nation's past is critical for us to be able to navigate our nation's future. And right now, all of that is in jeopardy.
Trump as curator of the American History Museum and the African American History Museum. I can't imagine that's a prospect that delights you, Niall.
It horrifies me, including the why do we want to portray slavery as so bad, which I think is an honestly offensive remark. I don't clutch my pearls at everything he says, but that is well over the line, in my view, into offensiveness.
Well, and I disagree, obviously, with Trump wanting to do this, so I'm not making a general defense of this. I don't, like, please get back to running the country, you know, get back to trying to get world peace, all that. We don't, please don't waste your time with, like, what the exhibits say at the museums. I'm not, and yes, the horror of slavery should never be underplayed. It should be taught in schools. We should teach real American history. We're not going to whitewash or sanitize. We don't need to do that at our museums either.
Pretty sure it's happening.
If it's just, also our museums don't need to be brochures for America. We don't. I guess
I don't know.
I also don't want excessive dwelling on everything being bad all the time. If that's what the museums were like. I've been to the African American History Museum and I did not find it to be that. It was obviously about slavery and other things. It also told stories of, he said something about the downtrodden, or like about how the downtrodden
downtrodden, essentially.
Well, about how they about how they created culture and contributed, even, you know, how they worked to get out of this situation. That part of it, I think, is good. The only thing I will point to, and some of the people, I don't know that Trump knows about this specifically, but some of the anti-DEI, anti-CRT people, when they point to the African American Museum, in particular. I've done this as well. There was this document on the website, The Aspects of White Supremacy Training by Tima Okun. That is not a historical document. It is in fact, I would classify it as pseudoscientific. It doesn't have some robust literature or research behind it. It is just a list of traits, including timeliness and intelligence and reading well. They say are aspects of white supremacy, and I don't think it should be taught in schools or diversity training seminars or whatever that white people are more timely than black people. That is a false notion. It's bad, and so that document shouldn't be there and shouldn't be used in training seminars. So if you're pointing to that kind of stuff, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
that's different
reasonable.
than the exhibits.
Right. I mean, that's, as you say, a kind of pseudoscience and a weird sort of racial essential.
Let me see. Did he... All right, so we're at 423. Smithsonian. We're not going to allow this to happen. He doesn't actually mention... Everything discusses how horrible the country is. He doesn't mention exhibits specifically. He actually just says the museums. So very easily could just be like, you know, the kind of the training stuff, the general kind of conversation.
Which I think is very distasteful always. Now, I was under the impression that that document had been removed or taken down.
Yep,
so
that was taken down. And I don't think that was like censorship to take that down. It's not a historical document. It just didn't belong as part of the museum.
Right. Now, in that instance, yes, that thing is bad or foolish or whatever we want to term it. I don't think that the mere existence of that document for a comparatively brief period of time should be used to besmirch, for example, the broader African American History Museum, which is a very, to my mind, impressive, moving account of a particular strand in the country's history. I do, of course, acknowledge that how you teach history is complicated, and it is not the case that there is a sole objective historical truth that just is told or is deviated from. Of course it's complicated. It's complicated anywhere in the world. Where I have a major problem here is the Trump administration's view in a separate document that they don't want things that are out of alignment with his view of history or his values. That seems to me to carry more than a whiff of sort of tin pot dictatorship stuff. And I think that is part of a broader picture where Trump has a propensity for those kinds of cases. So the idea that the president, the leader, can dictate what history is taught and what's not, depending on how it aligns with what he likes, I have massive problems with that.
Yeah, I have a problem with that too.
I don't see him doing it.
Of course, it always gets a little trickier when you're talking about a public institution that should both have editorial independence and free speech and all those kinds of protections, but if itself draws funding from taxpayers, then what level of input is, I mean, not the President of the United States, but the taxpayer, how much do they get to decide the thing they're funding? This is probably a more prescient question for schools rather than museums, although as a libertarian, I'd probably be perfectly fine to have all the museums private or like privately administered and privately funded. It'd be better for them, and then they can tell the president, fuck off, I don't care.
But then they just charge people to get in, whereas now we have
you can find a nice benefactor who makes it I bet you would love the Elon Musk Museum.
I'd be running for the hills.
But with schools, I want real history obviously taught in schools, and I think it is in the vast majority of schools in this country.
It is.
The parents have some right over the say in how their kids are educated, and my solution to this is
they're paying for it.
Broadly letting schools do whatever they want, and then saying, well, you, the family, get to decide what is the school you want, and that's the way to kind of lower the temperatures around the fight about, no, the school has to teach exactly these things and have exactly these books in the library.
That's
reasonable. They just have more choice for everyone.
Yeah, but in relation to the Trump issue with museums, he talks, for example, about being opposed to divisive lessons or divisive accounting of history. And the whole
think it's terms like divisiveness in terms of American identity, like splitting up Americans into black and white and Asian, all these different things, as opposed to a sort of a unified view of, okay, all these people are Americans. We're looking at American history, whether that's, black Americans, white Americans, Asian Americans, blah, 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 blah. It's just, it's an American story. Each group is, a important actor in that, but it is the American story. I can kind of understand that.
I mean, the whole struggle of history is about division. Right? It doesn't really matter whether it's about race or women's rights or any other topic. History is always about division. And how do you teach, for example, let's say the history of integration in this country without, instances like Little Rock or James Meredith or Ruby Bridges, people who were faced with the most appalling abuse for simply integrating previously white institutions.
I have a totally non-ideological issue about how history is taught in many schools in America, and that there's more history every year, and there's more things they got to squeeze in. I mean, genuinely, when you teach European history, for example, you often don't get to the 20th century. World War I and World War II get the shaft. Frankly, in American history, I think the struggle leading up to the Civil War is taught. Again, I'm not in charge of every school in America. I'm sure it's taught badly somewhere, but is covered pretty exhaustively relative to later things that happen in history, just because they run out of time to teach them. And I actually worry more about American history students being just deprived of knowledge. Again, strip the ideological valence out of it, but just knowledge about things that happened before they were born.
Before anyone alive was born. That's the other side of it. Is a lot of this, and I mean, this is very true for the teaching of history and education in general, but I mean, how pragmatic do you want to be about education? Should you be looking at education as, something that is there for practical benefit? This is there for the benefit of the student, and therefore they should be taught things that make their, future prospects better. Okay, if that's the case, then, you should be looking at things like in terms of teaching math. Algebra 2, calculus should not be the goal of high school mathematics. The goal of high school mathematics should be statistics. Because statistics are things that you can use in a day-to-day existence. Calculus outside of, higher ed sciences, in terms of your higher mathematics, your higher chemistries and physics, calculus is just completely useless. It's worthless. You shouldn't have it. There's no point learning it. You'll never use it ever. You'll never have any chance to use it. It's completely worthless. Statistics, on the other hand, how often do you see statistics? If you watch the news, every day you watch the news, you've got statistics in your face. If every American had a working knowledge of statistics from high school education, they would be massively better educated to deal with the world in general. Straight up, full stop, no problem. But done. Okay? In terms of history, if you had enormous, incredible knowledge of the last 100 years of history, but very nebulous, just super basic ideas of what happened every time, 10,000 years up to 100 years ago. And you're some stuff happened. I know, there was Greeks and there were these types of things. All of that stuff is kind of glossed over. And then the new stuff is what's focused on. You would be better off. You'd be better educated to deal with the world as it is. You just would. You just straight up would, because those are the things that are more important that might have an impact on you. And this is not the case with all of these far-flung historical things. And with a lot of education, this is the case. It's taught in such a way that it is not taking pragmatic practicalities into account. It's got much more to do with, this is kind of always how it was done. We're, we're looking at the tradition of this, and this is how it was taught. So calculus is what you're trying to learn. That's what you're trying to get out of it. What does this get to the normal average student? Nothing. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. That's what they need to do. Okay, well, like a lot of students do not really like math. So if you're forcing them to do something that they don't like and they don't get anything out of it, you're just wasting their time and you're making them hate school. As opposed to, okay, you're forcing them to do something like some people don't like history class. Okay, but you know what? You'll actually learn about what's going on in the news. You'll be able to draw parallels. You'll be able to figure stuff out. I know you hate it. You're not good at it. That's fine. But at the very least, you come out of this educated with a better head on your shoulders to tackle problems that might actually come up in your day-to-day life. That's kind of what we should be doing with history classes and just probably education in general, which is something that I have to say kind of, I like the idea of Trump approaching this stuff from an aspect. I don't know if he was, thinking about it in this respect, but you know what? Let's say there is a truth in history. And the truth, if it's taught, massively demoralizes a segment of the population, such that they're like, we're not going to, like, they get jobs at a far lesser rate. They earn less money over the course of their lifetimes. They're much less unhappy. They're much less successful. Should you be teaching that truth in history classes to everybody, just indiscriminately putting it out there for everybody? Or should you go, you know what, we're not going to teach that. We've got limited time. We can't teach everything. We're just going to, this is a thing is, yeah, we know it's true, but you know what? We're not going to mention it. All right. If people want to look into it, we're not censoring it. We're not keeping it out of anybody's hands, but we're not going to go out of our way to force it down our students' throats, because it's going to make them more successful people in their daily lives. That doesn't seem like a horrible idea to me. And so if, like, again, there's a quantifiable way to measure this, but let's say teaching slavery for, like, again, Robbie's right here, it is absolutely taught disproportionately, the lead up to the Civil War and slavery and these types of things. It is generally a disproportionate amount of time, classroom spent on it versus the amount of years it covers in history. If it was the case that teaching that demoralized, certain students, and you go, okay, they're not performing as well after these lessons or these types of things, after they've taken them home and they've integrated them into their understanding of the world, would it be the worst thing in the world to go, you know what, we're just gonna we won't teach that, like, because most people don't really, they don't actually care about history. They don't, it doesn't really impact them, especially because, again, even like the Civil War, which is relatively recent in history, is still like no one alive experienced the Civil War. Not at all. Okay, no one. So no one is affected by it, in real terms, if nobody knows exactly what happened with it. So I'm kind of, there is, I think, there should be a real legitimate argument for, like, looking at what's being taught. And you know what? If we're whitewashing history, but it makes everybody's lives better, yeah, go ahead and whitewash it. Do you really have that much of an attachment to truth that you would ruin other people's lives just so that, they could be forced to learn this stuff that's going to, like, hurt them? I mean, I don't think you should. Maybe you do, but I don't think you should. I think that's kind of a bad look. That's me.
but before that's recent enough to cover.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, these, without being too cliched about it, that kind of knowledge is actually important to citizenship, to being a fully participating member in the society. And I think it's important in that way.
All right, thanks so much for watching Free Media this week. We really...
All right, let me just write that down. 1.44. All right. Good, because I'll probably make a video out of that. I think that was a pretty good... I think that was a good idea. It was a good summation. All right. And then, let's see, we got one more video. Yes.
Governor's office has been sharing memes and AI-generated images, apparently
hilarious.
To get
This
under
stuff,
Trump's
this is
skin,
so
including
funny.
One that shows Kid Rock, Tucker Carlson, and the now deceased Hulk Hogan praying over Newsom.
But those tweets are not exactly receiving rave reviews.
I love it. Gavin Newsom, he's just... Everyone was freaking out. Everyone on like the conservative side of the aisle when he first had his podcast show up and he was like, oh yeah, he got, what was it, Charlie Kirk on his first episode of these types of things. And he had like a couple guests and he's like, oh my God, this guy is brilliant. It's incredible. It's amazing. This is the new Joe Rogan. He's going to be these types of things. Now what are they talking about? Now they're like, Gavin Newsom is done. His political career is over. He's toast. The idea that this guy is going to run for president in 4 years or something like that, 3 years, I guess, almost now. Get rid of it. It's gone. He's done. You need to start trying to find somebody else. He's toast. And these tweets are just like hilarious, circling the drain. Gavin Newsom. And you know what? Good riddance. Good riddance.
Stream media figures. Here was Morning Joe objecting to them.
It's quite embarrassing, actually.
God, this
Gavin
guy.
Newsom,
This guy. You could not find a more like left-leaning media personality. And he is basically going, yeah, sorry, Gav, couldn't do it. I mean, this is terrible.
Have you seen what he's doing online? And
so bad.
Just take a deep breath. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees.
Oh my God.
And they don't know what to do.
So what do you make of the new Gavin Newsom tweets?
I don't mind the new style of Gavin Newsom tweets, in fact.
Oh my
The Morning Joe
God.
discussion that we're watching there, Willie Geist chimed in with the idea that we're all now in the attention economy, which I think is true. And Newsom is obviously getting attention with these. Now, are they trollish? Yes, obviously, that's the entire point. But they do, I think, fight fire with fire to some degree in relation to Trump. And the purpose of tweets like that isn't real.
So, all right, does this guy have problems with Trump's trollish tweets? I haven't followed him forever, but other stuff that I've seen from him does seem to suggest that he is. He's not a fan of it. I could be wrong.
Really to win over any new converts. There aren't people in the middle ground, I don't think, who are going to become Gavin Newsom fans just because he tweets, the imagery of himself with Hulk Hogan and Tucker and all that, or whatever. The point is that it sort of draws attention, gets Democratic morale up a bit from its current rock bottom levels, and
Really?
makes people feel that there's a bit more vim to the opposition to Trump. I'm sure you have a very different view, right?
I'm certainly not clutching my pearls over them. I find it hilarious that various conservative commentators who are like, this is beneath the dignity of the office.
That is funny.
I mean, you never would ever apply that, that kind of verdict to someone on the right, let alone Donald Trump. I mean, some of these are the exact same images that, or exact same kind of image. Donald Trump tweeted, right, Pope Trump. I think the White House account retweeted the Pope Trump.
That's right.
And I don't care about that. It was funny, so I don't really care about it when Democrats do it. Fine. Does it, if you're doing something that's insincere or inauthentic to you, then it maybe doesn't work. I mean, Trump is funny.
That's fair. That's an interesting point. Because it's like Gavin Newsom is not a shit poster. Like Trump, very clearly, like he is that guy. He is the shit poster. He is the troll. And therefore, when it comes from him, you're like, okay, you're actually getting him. You're getting an unvarnished version of him. Maybe you hate it, but you can't say it's dishonest. You can't say it's scummy. You can be like, oh, it's not correct for the dignity of the president. Okay, but no one would claim, oh yeah, no, he's actually being like a really disingenuous person. He's just trying to scam you. He's trying to charm you and cajole you and, use this for really specific purposes to, like, bring you in and do that stuff. And he actually doesn't feel this way at all. But with Gavin Newsom, you'd say, oh, actually, no. Yeah, he's not that guy. He's not the Trump personality who's going to be, just out there trolling because he just, he finds it fun or, that's his personality. He's a politician, and he's nothing but a politician. He's only there to grab your vote and grab your this stuff. So if he's doing it, it is disingenuous. It's not honest. As opposed to with Trump, where you go, it's not good. Maybe you hate it. Maybe it's gross, but it's honest. With Gavin, you can't say that. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I don't like his presence is comedic, or at least I think so, and so do millions of other people. I don't know if that's really Gavin Newsom's style. I think his podcast has been quite successful, on the other hand, at making him, not converting people from the right to his side, but just being introduced to people on the right and lowering the amount of visceral dislike they feel for him as a California liberal who was
again. I think at this point
particularly odious during COVID, even in terms of some personal hypocrisy type stuff that has, that has affected quite a few politicians, even some Republicans. Ted Cruz infamously vacationing during it, that kind of thing.
I do think, just to park for a second your comment about Donald Trump's being amusing, because I find him rather less amusing than you do.
Yeah, I don't find his policies amusing, but I just find his persona funny.
Yeah,
fair
I don't like it. But
in relation to Newsom, I think that a lot of the lens that we have to look at this through is 2028, and it is pushing Newsom more to the front of that pack, I think.
No, so that's kind of the point. It's not. It's not. I don't think it is. I don't think this guy is a good predictor, for one thing. I don't think Neil Nile is a good predictor of that stuff. He hasn't been historically, as far as I can tell. But I also, and the people who have been are, telling me, nope, this is bad for him, this is bad for his image. I think that's fair, because the people who like the sort of, attention grabbing, attention whoring that Trump does, they're already Trump supporters. They're not going to get won over by him. And this does not give him any points with people in the middle, because the people in the middle that, don't like Trump, but are, don't agree with, leftist policies, they're now going to be turned off from Gavin. They're now going to be turned off from him, and they're going to go, okay, well, I'm more in line with his policies, or I'm more in line with Donald Trump's policies, but I can't vote for him because of his personality. If the left now has the same personality, well, then they're just going to go, oh, okay, well, then in that case, if both of you are reprehensible personalities, I'll vote for the person whose policies I more agree with, which for the people in the middle, very clearly, because Trump won, is Trump. They're going to be voting for him more. I don't think you're grabbing new people from this. The people in the middle that are not paying attention to these things are not paying attention to these things. The attention economy, I understand the argument. He wants eyeballs. Eyeballs are good no matter what. I get that. But I think at this point, it's over. He's not winning that fight. So yeah, I don't think this is going to bring any new people in to his coalition.
When you look at some of the rivals or assumed rivals for the Democratic nomination, Gretchen Whitmer had that visit to the White House where she ended up hiding herself behind the folders as the press were trying to...
I see you, Gretchen. I see you.
Didn't really conceal her presence all that effectively. Other people like Pete Buttigieg have been doing, occasional podcast appearances, sometimes, getting himself into trouble on the Israel-Gaza question.
He's doing all right, but he's just so associated with the Biden administration. It's going to be tough for him.
Exactly. And so Newsom, who I have somewhat mixed feelings about, is at least, I think, sort of spearheading or putting himself to the fore of that field.
I mean, he realistically, other than Kamala Harris, who's been just completely, non-existent since the election, he's the only person anyone's even remotely mentioning in terms of the 2028 election. That's it. Now, it's super early. There's, it's super, super insanely early. And therefore, we could have new people come in and you'd have to have a primary. So I don't see him being, just the heir apparent right now. But he's the only name anyone's really talking about. Pete Buttigieg, Gretchen Whitmer, no, they're not in contention in the same way that Gavin Newsom is. It's not the case. Kamala Harris would be the only other person who might be mentioned in the same sentence as Gavin Newsom, simply because she already ran for president, and she was vice president, but she's been non-existent since, she's just been totally non-existent since the election. So he's the only name, but I don't think this is pushing him forward. He's already at the front of the pack. Anything he could do now is not going to lengthen his lead. If anything, it's going to make him trip and fall back, and now he's lost amongst the pack.
I agree with that. I think Newsom is becoming more and more one of the top competitors.
He's the only
It's
one.
awkward, obviously, because the person I still think is probably the number one competitor, even though she is so flawed in so many ways, is Kamala Harris. Just on the
interesting.
And people
Really?
always laugh at me when I say that, like, nobody likes her, nobody wants her.
Yeah.
That may very well be true. I'm not
That's
saying
true.
she's invincible, but she has higher name recognition at this point than anyone else. And we've
because she ran. That's true. They spent a ton of money to do that, but I mean, she's like the most famous loser.
learned over and over again that name recognition matters. Biden and Bernie were the top two for the Democrats in 2020 because they were the best known candidates, because Biden was the vice president and Bernie was the runner-up from last time. So you can't tell me name recognition doesn't matter. It's how Trump, in a very crowded field in 2016 with his, 20 or 30% versus everybody else in single digits, he conquered them all. It is not unimaginable to me that something like that happens for Kamala, even if she is not herself the most marvelously compelling figure.
Yeah, I think it is imaginable or plausible that she does it. Now, I think she herself has a lot of hurdles that she has to clear. There isn't, to my mind, a real massive enthusiasm even within the Democratic Party for her. Her argument that she only had 107 days and if she had longer, she would have beaten Trump. I'm highly skeptical of that argument. In fact, the high point of her campaign was almost immediately after she was nominated. And then
If the election had happened the day after she was nominated, if she had one day instead of 107, maybe.
That's true.
She might have easily got in there if it was held on the last day of the Democratic convention or something. That's not how these things typically tend to work. But you're right, name recognition does matter, and in the past we have seen, admittedly more often in the Republican Party,
which is the real question here. Like, in terms of a long-term campaign, if Kamala Harris had, the full year of campaigning and these types of things, she probably makes more mistakes and it's probably more of a blowout than it already was. That's very likely. And again, that's it. These are the two top contenders. It's Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom being the only person who's currently right now, like, actively campaigning, even though he doesn't say it, but he's very clearly, like, campaigning to be president, or at the very least candidate for president. And it doesn't seem like it's super going well for him. Like, and again, I don't think these tweets push him further ahead.
The people whose turn it is, purportedly McCain in 2008,
Mm-hmm.
George H.W. Bush way back in, 1988, becoming the nominee. Maybe that will happen on the Democratic side.
We'll have.
Yeah, who else would it be? I really don't think there's anybody else. I don't think there's anybody else who could, who even remotely like comes out as a possibility. All right, so let's see. I'm actually really hungry and I kind of want to just quit right now. And I actually do need to check to see if some stuff got finished up around the place. So you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. So we'll say today's finished at 2 hours. I did 2 hours, which I'm happy about. That was good. And then tomorrow I'll just do nothing but Deus Ex, which is good because I don't want to confuse people doing like the YouTube videos and then Deus Ex with like the thumbnail. Because I made a decent thumbnail for it, but I think everybody was just like weirded out and confused. So I think tomorrow, which is what? Sunday. That's usually my best day. So you know what? Yeah, that's what we'll do. Tomorrow we'll do that. Tomorrow we'll do nothing but Deus Ex. We'll start at, whatever 2 hours ago was for you in your time zone. And then we'll do 4 hours of that. And that should be pretty good. I'll be happy with that. And I have 2 videos from today, so I can do that. Sounds good. All right. That being said, thank you very much for your time.